We are the founders and the research specialists of the Botanical Gardens. And we are very pleased to give you a brief survey of many plants, herbs, flowers, and what have yous.
Some of which have hallucinogenic properties, will haunt you for all of eternity, will possess you with a ghost of sorts, or will simply fool you in ways you never expected to be fooled.
Here, bring it. Is it on?
It's on.
There you go. Try again. There you go. Perfect.
So this here is...
Yeah, tilt that
can you
down.
hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're right in there.
So this here is the Helianthus of Xanax. Certain sunflowers grow in unison to such a degree that they create a smog of gold in some fields where camels do love to go on birthdays and anniversaries. These are warm and inviting sunflowers which are world-renowned for their heat and their glow, but sometimes troublingly so, as camels and other creatures can be really blinded by the strong and wide-reaching petals and rays of light which these flowers are doomed to emanate. Camels that do not have a plenty and endless amount of legs may tire crawling through such beauty and meet their untimely end. The flowers also boast charitable and smiling little faces.
So yeah, you can see that one just might have enough legs. Can get through the smog. But maybe not. And this is the striped limb root. Now this is not a flower, nor a herb, but a root. Unlike many of the other species in the Langorous Botanical Gardens, the striped limb root is less spooky and is comprised of good intention and so-called happy things. This root can heal all illnesses, and the only downfall of the root is its playful nature. The striped limb root is not uncommon to come by. However, it is full of energy and so hard to wrangle up. This playful beast runs and jumps through neighborhoods. Its many serpent heads yip with excitement, and its danglers flail around, squeaking and squirming. If you are sad, the striped limb root will cure your sadness. And if you're happy, eat a speck of this root and become even happier. If you are dead, just find a way to have some striped limb root and simply be revived. However, if you ingest even a speck too much of this root, be careful, for you may begin to grow extra unwanted appendages. You can see some of the appendages up there. And there's a lot going on this screen, but if you look in the middle, there's a single flower. And this is the story of that flower. It is a flower which generates holograms in the foyer of a famous and fancy science museum. And we, the founders and specialists of the Botanical Gardens, cultivated this flower in our gardens for 100 years or so, before selling it to the fantastically wealthy and mad person who owns the overwhelming institution where it now resides. The flower is called the Helix halcyon robustus, and it generates images which are incredible and uncontrollable, and which even resonate deep within their viewers in a strange and probably religious way. And this is the security guard of the flower, a strong ghost who is very little and only lifts incredibly small but dense and terribly heavy objects in order to intimidate and stun the patrons of this museum, who scoff at him unbearably before attempting and failing to lift fantastically the very same minor yet monstrous heavyweights. And so you can see that this snake with two heads is one of the holograms And these are some of the patrons of the famous museum.
Feel free to take that microphone out and walk with it. That's easier. You have a little bit of cord to move with if you need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll probably just
I think it's
like that.
good.
Yeah, I think
Whatever
it's
it is,
fine.
We'll switch it on.
Thank you, Bill. Every merman is known to tend to a certain shrub of seaweed, which is incidentally a garden of sorts. He collects little things like the leaves of other plants, as well as these arm-flexing coral fauna known as felchire. It's hard to say, like I can't even say it, we created it, I don't even know how to say it, which are highly animated and make the garden shrub a very performative and constantly moving plant. It's swaying in the wind, but you can't tell because it's a still image, so. This flower begins in the form of a beautiful bulb rich in pigment, colors you have never laid eyes on before, colors without names. Once popped into the ground, there's excitement and anticipation to see what will sprout. When the bulbous, smiling squiggler does finally sprout, the colors are still there, however, they emit through the tiny windows on the floor, which you can see, all the windows, where the color comes out. Small creatures smile and wave and send small invitations which invite you to enter into the bulbous, smiling squiggler through the tiny door. When you go inside, the colors engulf you. The tiny creatures feed you tea and biscuits. They ask you questions like, "How was your day?" And alas, they truly care about the answer. It is very nurturing flower, good for the heart. But once you're inside, there's no escaping. So, you must accept your fate and become one of the tiny creatures waving from within the glowing window.
Yeah, I'm always really surprised when I see this one in person, and it's always a little bit more bulbous than I remembered it being. So this is the gold variegated staircase, less commonly referred to as the false daisy. Even though these smiles are not quite so similar as the blades of the grass, nor the petals of this wide, sweeping, and confusing carnation, still many forget to notice and attend to them, just like the vainglorious and stodgy bureaucrats of a sunken and mismanaged town hall. And this flower even grows in the meadows which surround a town with a town hall quite like that. It is thus the only charitable and lovely aspect of this town, which we are no longer permitted to name in our presentations due to police activity. Additionally, you can see there are some gremlins, and they orbit the center of the flower every time. Also, staircases with functionaries grow upon the littlest leaves, and even on days without rain. To be the functionary of a staircase upon a slender stem is disturbing work for these little creatures, especially on windy days.
This one here is called the Hiscabis Delirium. This plant is incredibly rare amongst all of these other incredibly rare plants. I'd say this one may very well be the rarest. Come to think of it, there is only one of these plants in the entire universe. It has large hand-like roots which it uses to slowly travel around the world. Those who claim to have seen it are not even sure if it was simply a figment of their imagination. It is called, as I already said, but in case you forgot, the Hiscabis Delirium. The few creatures who have encountered the Hiscabis Delirium stare wide-eyed into the distance as they speak slowly and quietly about their encounter with this traveling plant. It may pass you by in the eve, but only during the witching hour. You will hear it coming through the sound. The sound is not loud, though also not quiet. Similarly, when it passes by, it does not move slowly nor quickly. This plant is known for its contradictions. It sends out vibrations and surrounds you with a strange, echoing, maniacal, howling kind of laughter. The Hiscabis Delirium makes many efforts to fool, deceive, and tempt, as it is a playful plant, a jokester, if you will. Its many heads have been asleep for billions of decades, though they all have consciousness and are whistling, humming, and speaking in a dreamlike daze. There are dangling berries that appear to be the most delectable berries one may ever have laid eyes on. When you reach for the berries, there's nothing there. You'll be haunted by the idea of these berries for the remainder of your existence. The bird which perches on a cloud like mass, which some say is the home to a serpent, is the most peculiar part of all. The bird will sing to you the most beautiful melodies which have kept the heads asleep for so long. After encountering Hiscabis Delirium, you will never know again if you are asleep or awake. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I'm very bad at explaining.
The sauntering and snaking and drooping and leaning and one-sided wonder plant. A grim and timely reminder of certain conversational strategies and approaches to life. Each pod which sprouts from this precarity is an apartment unit, and within these units live the loneliest creatures on the planet. They all live alone. Now you can see in the lower 4 pods some birds and faces which may lead you to believe that there are duos occupying these leafy climes. But such a hypothesis would indeed be imaginary, for these secondary visages are merely the hallucinatory dream companions of certain tenants gone mad via their own solitude and independence. The entire structure of the plant leans terribly and may collapse at any minute. And so you can see the way of the world for those who wind their own way. It's pretty small, but if you see this guy at the bottom, he's holding up a bowling ball, and he is bowling alone. A lot of times when I walk through the gardens just before locking up, late at night, I ask myself, looking at this plant, if a jokester cackles in his decrepit studio flower and no one hears it, did the jokester really cackle at all?
The balsam reacher, or the hovering grime of Douglas. No one has ever known which of these 2 names is the actual name of this plant. This plant is considered an earth coral because of the way it sways in the wind, but no one is actually sure whether it is an earth coral or something else. In fact, no one is actually sure whether earth corals are even a thing.
The red-spotted soul sucker. Ah, yes, the red speckled soul sucker. I thought it was the spotted one, but that's actually a different variant. This is speckled soul sucker. A flower which produces both good and evil. A flower with many souls. Celebrated all over the world, this flower can be found in some of the strangest places. It grows under logs, in dark and dewy bogs, and thrives in mystical forests. It is always an unexpected experience to find one of these rare treasures. Comprised of many souls and the collective consciousness, this flower has a way of seeing the truth. From the outside, this flower has many vibrant shades of red which lure creatures in, while stumbling and bumbling through mystical forests. If you are bad and or evil, you are safe. But if you have lived a good, wholesome, loving, generous existence, you are doomed. This flower will suck your soul out of your body like a spaghetti noodle. The beauty which emits from this specimen is made up of all the good souls who have encountered this flower. The red speckled soul sucker is used in many ceremonial practices, but we are not allowed to tell you what they are, as you would then be cursed for all of eternity.
So, good luck on your travels if you are ever bewitched enough to encounter one of these plants.
Well, actually, just hearing about their properties is as potent as experiencing them firsthand, as is the nature of these mystical plants. So, you are all cursed for eternity. And, you know, we offer our gravest apologies. This may have been a mistake.